I love Daredevil. There's a story to be told with almost every shot of the show. The city you watch the characters walk through feels alive and real. The journey of following a man who is a walking contradiction. He's blind, yet he sees better than anybody else. He's a devout Catholic, yet he dresses up as the devil at night and beats up criminals. Dialogue that actually feels like two people talking instead of exposition for a TV show. Every character, no matter how small, has real depth, moments, and payoffs. It's a show that's not afraid to take things slowly and let moments just sit. It's charming and funny, yet gritty and violent. It has some of the greatest fights ever put to screen with its infamous oneers in each season. Fights that, due to budget restrictions and a commitment to authenticity, are practical and filled with clever camera tricks and amazing stunt work. Despite Hell's Kitchen being only a small region of New York, the scale of its area feels massive. Two of the greatest casting choices for comic book projects ever, with Charlie Cox as Daredevil, who fully engrossed him as the role, and Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, who's always able to convey a brutally intimidating presence on screen. A villain whose horror and power is conveyed to the audience in genius ways. Fisk is so intimidating when a man tells Daredevil the name of Fisk, he chooses to impale his own head on a spike. Even the show's so-called worst season has arguably some of the best scenes in all of the MCU with Punisher and Daredevil.
The bullies with your fists, you throw them in jail, everybody calls you a hero, right? And then a month, a week, a day later, they're back on the streets doing the same goddamn thing.
So you just put him in the morgue.
You goddamn right I do.
It's because of my love for the Netflix Daredevil that I hate Daredevil Born Again. Daredevil Born Again is far from the worst thing Marvel has ever made, but we have a direct comparison of the drop in quality for it with the 3 seasons of Daredevil. In Season 1, the shot composition is average at best, with shots that got most praises being cheap lighting tricks that give off an artsy look, changing light from red or blue. The majority of dialogue scenes are just blatant exposition where character A tells character B the events of a previous scene. Every new character the show tries to introduce sucks and are just basic, cheap ripoffs of the original Netflix character. The action and fights have an over-reliance on CGI that causes the characters to look plastic and fake, and their weight and momentum to be completely off. The show takes us out of Hell's Kitchen and moves it to New York broadly, yet somehow the size and scale feels smaller. The city feels dead. Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio try their best, but without any good writing, there's just nothing they could do. Kingpin is turned into a cuck and idiot who does not have a single good scene that is a setup or payoff in the entire season. They don't bring back most of the characters from the Netflix show, and those they do, they destroy. And there's just something so irritating about taking characters, setups, and payoffs from something that a bunch of other people put a lot of hard work into and destroying those and stealing payoffs for yourself. My Season 1 review went pretty light on this show, and I'm changing that up for Season 2. Because I love the character of Daredevil, I've decided to go deeply into almost every scene of each episode, pointing out the flaws and, yes, comparing it back to the Netflix show. Because if you want to be a replacement for something amazing, you're going to have to earn that. We open up on the BB Report, a YouTube news coverage that features man-on-the-street interviews of the citizens of New York. But this one is clearly propaganda, showing an idyllic New York as BB asks a man if Mayor Fisk fix it, to which he enthusiastically replies yes. Following the BB Report, we get an establishing shot of New York City as a shipping boat called the Northern Star approaches. In all honesty, I think this might be the best shot Born Again has had. The city feels populated, nothing looks like CGI goo, which before I go any further, I will say, despite the impression I might already be giving off, I'm not anti-CGI. I'm only anti-CGI when it comes to replacing something that could easily be done practically, or when you use CGI and it looks really fake and bad. This shot is not one of those. My only thing I'll point out would be that Wilson Fisk mandated an 8 p.m. curfew in Season 1, and, well, I guess I can't know for sure. It does look like it's after 8 p.m., but again, can't know for sure. Daredevil swings onto the Northern Star and begins to take out armed guards patrolling the boat. He makes his way down below deck, where he stands in front of the light, creating a devil shadow, startling a man who turns to shoot him, before Daredevil uses ultimate ability for the one-shot knockout. His ult will now enter cooldown, and it'll take a minute for him to recharge and use that again. The man shoots a hole into a wall in the boat, and Daredevil steps forward with a shot that literally just exists for Twitter, giving us a look at the logo on Daredevil's black painted suit. More on that suit in a little bit. Daredevil hears more men coming and ambushes them before using the chaos of the man's gunfire to sneak off to keep jumping out at the guards. Daredevil breaks one of the guards' arm and knocks them out before delivering some super necessary ground and pound strikes to the man on the ground. Okay, let's talk about this fight scene. A quick Google search will tell you Flanderization is the process where a single, often minor trait of a character is exaggerated over time, eventually consuming their entire personality until they become a one-dimensional caricature of their former self. Daredevil Born Again loves Flanderization. This fight is basically a cheap ripoff of the first fight we get in Netflix's Daredevil Season 1. The fight starts with Daredevil standing behind the person to startle them. The Devil Shadow is maybe a little cheesy, but I kind of like it. Matt uses the element of surprise to quickly ambush and neutralize the first guy he sees. Then Daredevil turns his head to listen as the other guards approach. In Born Again, Daredevil disappears into the shipping containers, sneaking around, but in Netflix, there's a melee that we'll come back to in a second. In the Netflix show, the first man Daredevil knocked out, Turk, is coming to his senses and goes for his gun. Hearing this, Daredevil knows he needs to get out, so he hides in the maze of containers. As Turk searches through the maze, the camera is chaotic and figuratively and literally shot from Turk's point of view. The chaos is created by showing us the shaky POV shot from Turk, and then a cut to his panicked look as he tries to find him. In Born Again, they go for the same panic style, but they don't use the same talented cinematography, so the camera just feels messy and chaotic as opposed to Netflix's organized chaos. Now let's compare the melee exchanges, because this is where the Flanderization really starts. In both fights, Daredevil is fighting multiple men, and he is clearly a superior fighter than them, so he ultimately wins the fight. While he's fighting in the Netflix show, there are subtle grunts and exhales, sounds of someone punching and fighting, whereas in Born Again, he is yelling as he throws every punch. The Flanderization here being, well, remember, Daredevil yells, so he has to be yelling. Ignoring the whole context and point of those primal screams from Netflix, in case the comparison needed to be more clearly at how much these two scenes are alike, Matt also breaks an attacker's limb in both Netflix and Born Again, and the fight ends with Matt punching a guy he's already defeated. Flanderization here again. Daredevil likes hurting bad guys, so he punches them when they're already unconscious on the ground. Except, in the Netflix show, this was set up in the prior scene. This was Matt letting the devil out, because Turk was being an evil piece of garbage. He was participating in the trafficking of women, he actively was tasing and threatening them, and Daredevil hates him for it, so he lets the devil out. In Born Again, he punches a random guard who has done nothing worse than any of the other guards there because Daredevil lets the devil out, man. After the fight, the captain and first mate stop the boat, to which Daredevil grabs a security camera and shows them off a shot of his logo. Daredevil discovers a false wall and breaks it down, stepping into the room. There's a bit of a weird jump cut here where they use kind of a zoom in on the camera. It's not terrible, but jump cuts can be a little jarring, and if you put them in, it's not usually the best choice. Now, after stepping in, you get a shot of the back of Daredevil as he looks across the boat, and wow, this shot looks really fake and bad. I don't know if this is a problem with the green screen or just the lighting they put on him, or maybe this is all shot practically and they added a bunch of post-processing and CGI filters on top of it that makes this scene look bad, which is something Marvel has done in the past. But the way the light interacts with him just looks plasticky and fake. It's hard to describe, but you can kind of just see it by looking, especially with a still image there. You're probably just staring at it a little too long. Something about it just doesn't quite feel right, and I wish I could do a better job of describing what that was. Then we get a shot of his freshly painted black suit. Now, first off, I'm not sure why why it's spray painted over his red suit, because in the shot of his little mask layer in season 1, we see a black suit mask where black is the base color. But I guess that point aside, I think the suit looks pretty good. I like the Shadowlands Daredevil suit as much as the next guy, don't get me wrong. And I'm glad they finally put the logo on it, the DD logo. But now you kind of have to explain why suddenly, after over a decade, he's decided to change up the look and add the logo to it. This is probably the only time where a flaw from the Netflix show is going to give Born Again more weight to lift. Because the Netflix show really struggled with the suit for Daredevil, Born Again now kind of has to explain it. It can't just be, the fans wanted the logo, so we put the logo on it. Also, we've gotten very little of Daredevil in the actual red suit in comparison to how much show exists. So personally, I would have preferred if the first time we saw the logo on the suit, it was the red one, but that is a personal preference thing, I guess, not necessarily a flaw with the show. And there are still more episodes. They could explain why he has changed up the look with the logo, why he's painted a suit black. They could explain all those things. I'm just pointing it out because they have yet to explain it so far. And honestly, I kind of feel like they probably won't, but I can be proven wrong. Daredevil discovers in this false room they're smuggling a bunch of guns. He then hears the captain and first mate make the decision to try and sink the ship because that is what they were commanded to do. Daredevil then needs to get out of the ship, and it's time for Twitter Shot Final Boss. In Season 1 of Born Again, they used a dolly zoom and aspect ratio change to show Matt using his radar sense. Twitter loved it. One small problem, they literally did not do it a single time after that. Don't use a camera trick to imply something is happening if you only do it for the first time and not again after that. In order to show radar sense in the Netflix show, they often mess with the focus or the way the audio sounded. Very subtle and easily repeatable tricks that are not distracting, but accomplish the goal of what they're going for, of you knowing Matt's using his radar sense. This is grandiose and so up their own ass, and I'm glad they don't use this every time he uses his powers, but once you set it up, I kind of feel like you should do it. That aside, I think it's kind of cool, I guess. The aspect ratio goes wider to show he's searching broadly and then gets tight on the item he's focusing on. It's alright, but if the last season is anything to go on, this is a one-time thing, and there will maybe be this same kind of effect or aspect ratio change once or twice in the rest of the season. Again, could be proven wrong. I kind of hope I'm not proven wrong, because that'll get real old real quickly. Daredevil hears a distinct watch that he places in the crate of guns so he can find them once they sink to the bottom of the river or are moved to wherever they go once they're retrieved. Daredevil is then immediately in a hallway as the boat begins to flood, and he drops into the water. And you know those action shots where stuff looks fake because of CGI that I mentioned earlier? This is one of those. The weight of Daredevil looks way off as he falls down into the water. The weight just does not look correct. Now, I have a problem with this moment, full stop. All those guys he just knocked out, he didn't even try to save them. He just let them die. Daredevil is not a subscriber to the belief of Batman Begins' moral logic of Batman's no-kill rule, something that Netflix's Season 1, Episode 6 pointed out to Daredevil, refusing to let Vladimir die, even after he got the information he needed from him. It's just not something he does. As he swims to the shore, he stands up in the Born Again intro plays. I'm going to talk about this intro for episode 1, and then not again in any of the subsequent episodes. I hate this intro. The Netflix intro shows the red chemicals flooding over the city, molding into things that make Matt the character he is. This intro shows you all the things you liked about the Netflix show and then breaks them into pieces, because that stuff is lame and we need to be born again. Matt's commitment to legal and blind justice, destroyed. Now he's going to do something that would get him disbarred in the court of law by using evidence that was actively said not to be used. Matt's Catholicism, gone, destroyed. Wouldn't want any of those boring scenes where Matt's challenged by his religion. You'll get a couple prayer scenes here and there, but after that, that's not a thing anymore. Vanessa, being in love with Kingpin's power and the man he is as a criminal, as well as his love for her, destroyed. Now she cheated on him and they're going to marriage counseling. Nelson, Murdoch, and Paige, your favorite trio of characters maybe ever in the MCU, whose law firm you never actually got to see, destroyed, gone. We don't need that. All those pieces that had to be destroyed form who the new Daredevil is. Screw you and screw this new intro. And this song's not as good. I don't care. It's not as good. They changed the time code. It's a different instrumental thing. Not as good. All right. And yes, I am being petty now because I don't like what this intro means. And even if, like, you could say, that's not what they're trying to say with this intro. The problem is it's what they did. They showed you all these things getting destroyed, and then in Season 1, they actively destroyed those things, intentionally or not. After the intro, we get a shot of Josie's bar, and oh boy, if you ever needed a distinct look of quality drop-off, look at Josie's in the Netflix show, and this Josie's. Netflix Josie's looks like a real building in Hell's Kitchen, New York. This looks like a wall on the set of a movie studio or a TV show studio. Matt walks up the stairs as Karen does some Steven Seagal training, and Karen compliments him on taking down Northern Star. Matt points out Fisk is using the Freeport to smuggle arms, which, like, I kind of thought would be obvious. You know, the place that for whatever reason no law enforcement has any jurisdiction. Yeah, kingpin of crime, he's doing crime there. Matt then asks who all the firepower's for. Now, this serves as the lazy and trash reason for why Jessica Jones is going to show up in this show later, when I feel like Occam's razor and likely Matt's instinct would tell him Why is the evil guy with a private military police force smuggling a lot of weapons into his crime area? Maybe it's for the private military police force. Now, it's not, but I, again, feel like that would be the easiest conclusion to draw. Also, why would they need Jessica Jones to be the one to discover what this is for? Karen would be the one to investigate this in Netflix, or like Ben Urich before he was killed. And even in this show, one of the most worthless characters of all time, Cherry, is Matt's investigator. There is no reasonable explanation as to why they need Jessica Jones on this, other than, well, we need her in the script, so she's here now. Matt says they need to get the message out that the mayor's running guns, which this is a guy who had his security forces gun down police officers on television, on the news, live. And apparently, according to season 1 of Born Again, the rumors that he decapitated a Russian with his car door are in the streets. It's also known he manipulated and blackmailed an entire division of the FBI, as well as an FBI agent to dress up as Daredevil and murder a bunch of people, yet people still voted for him. I don't think being like, dude, that criminal guy, he's smuggling guns now, is gonna make people all of a sudden not trust him, and they're not gonna all of a sudden be anti-Fisk. If all that other stuff didn't work, I don't think that's gonna be a real big change in their mindset. Matt and Karen then start making out. Last time we saw them together outside of the season 1 finale, they were trying to honor the Friends Code. Then Karen left for San Francisco. But I guess now they're just making out. This is not your payoff. The Netflix show did all the setup for this relationship, and still never did it because the characters knew they couldn't make it work in the show. They would have loved to do that payoff, I think. It's an easy payoff to do. But they couldn't because that wouldn't make sense for the characters at the point in which they were. Maybe eventually down the line, there wasn't really any reason in Born Again. All Born Again did in season 1 was set up that Karen abandons Matt when things were tough, so now they're making out because why not? At the scene of the crash, Mayor Fisk pulls up. But first, we see his 3 lieutenants. Interesting challenge here. Try to name these 3 characters. We have Buck Cashman, who is the new Wesley, but on the criminal illegal side. Daniel Blake, also known as TikTok Man, who is Fisk's protege, and he's a sycophant for him, I guess. He's supposed to be like the new age Gen Z, how to get in touch with the kids on TikTok kind of guy. He knows about the BB report, and that's his whole character, and he loves Fisk for some reason. And most importantly, he's a complete imbecile. And of course, as you know, this is Sheila, and she's like James Wesley, but on the legal mayor side of stuff, and also not at all at the same time, and is mostly just useless. But then again, basically all these characters are useless, and stupid, and have no character traits or writing. It's great. I love it. Which, like, remember Sheila in season 1? She was kind of anti-Fisk, and then because character development that totally existed, she was like, anyway, I'm going to sell out this police commissioner and get him killed.
That is one big pile of shit.
Before with Fisk, I guess the argument was maybe they like genuinely believe he can make the city a better place. But now, like season 2, they're like literally just Team Hitler. Also there is Officer Evil Bad Guy. He's a bad guy and you'll know it. Does he have motivation? Nope. He just wants to kill people. His actual name is Officer Powell. That's pretty irrelevant, and I couldn't remember it when I was trying to remember what his name was on my live show last week. So I kind of just call him Officer Evil Bad Guy because that's the entire character, is that he's evil and a bad guy. Then we get a shot of a boat, and wow, this looks bad again. I think it's the CGI fog that causes it, but I'm not sure. It might just be the lighting. Something about it looks off again. Fisk tells his lieutenants it's a terrorist attack orchestrated by the vigilante of Hell's Kitchen. Why would he not just say Daredevil? Everybody knows who Daredevil is. When people hear vigilante of Hell's Kitchen, they're going to be like, oh, you mean Daredevil, the guy who's been active for a decade plus? This is an attempt at some kind of PR political speak, I guess, and it just doesn't make sense. Daredevil, again, has been active for over a decade. TikTok Man, though, he says he can get that story around. Kingpin then asks Buck who else knew about the shipment, and Buck tells him just the first mate and the captain, so they have to go find them. In Washington, D.C., a character is going to be known as Mr. Charles gets a call, but I'm just going to call him Springtrap, and he's going to head on down to New York, and that's literally the entire scene. We get some more BB Report propaganda, and then Karen and Matt begin to talk. Karen says no matter what we do, Fisk just gets back up, and even worse than before. The last time they took Fisk down was over 10 years ago. They just let him back out and let him do criminal acts again. Why is she just like, Fisk always gets worse? Then this existential crisis has already happened multiple times. There was kind of a whole season about how Matt was just going to go ahead and kill him because there's no stopping Fisk with the system. Matt then says if we expose Fisk as smuggling guns to the Freeport, then it'll show the city and Albany who he is. They know. He had people killed on live TV. He was arrested for blackmailing the FBI. He made an FBI agent dress up as Daredevil and kill a bunch of people. Smuggling guns is not going to show people who Fisk really is. They already know. Jessica, however, pulled the ship's manifest, and now they have the name of the captain and first mate. Then we get a stupidly funny match cut where we get a bald mannequin head, and they match cut it to the back of Fisk's bald head, which is such a funny scene. And I don't know if they thought it was clever or if they were trying to make it funny, but it's very funny. Fisk watches the security footage of Daredevil, and it's important to note, seemingly Fisk is the only person to have this footage. I say that because there's going to be multiple times characters like, it was Daredevil on that boat. And like characters who I would think Fisk would tell or like show this footage to would see that. But it kind of seems like he kept this under wraps. That's not necessarily confirmed, but based off what other characters tell me, I kind of have to conclude that. So Fisk, or at least the tight circle Fisk has around him, is the only people who can see this video. Fisk is greeted by the Lieutenant Governor and Attorney General. They point out Fisk's evil Hitler rule is an evil Hitler rule, saying he imposes mandatory life sentences on vigilantes or saying he imposes mandatory life sentences on vigilantes and other extrajudicial acts. The mayor cannot impose a prison sentence. That's a decision for the judge. A law can kind of state a window of punishment, I believe, but the judge has the final say in it. The mayor is not the emperor of the world. The attorney general and lieutenant governor, they're big mad at Fisk, and Fisk assures them the culprit of the ship capsizing will be brought to justice. The attorney general says there will be oversight over the vigilante trials. Now, at this point, Springtrap walks into the office, and he's being all quirky and cool because he's a funny guy and he's confident. Political campaign manager lady, which Sheila, that's her name, tells Springtrap he's probably not supposed to be in the office. And then he says, I'm definitely supposed to be here, Sheila. And it's treated as some like crazy thing that he knows her name, which if it was a viewer of this show, yes, it's actually impressive that he remembered Sheila's name because she's not that memorable. But in the universe, she's kind of an important part of the mayor's cabinet. So I think he would know her name. And I don't know why they like put this emphasis on it, like the music. Sheila gets all nervous and like looks over to Fisk, and like there's some subtle music playing in the background. He's like giving a confident smirk. It's like, you're kind of a public figure, lady. Springtrap insults Lieutenant Governor, saying he doesn't even know what one of those does, and then calls him by his first name, causing Buck, TikTok Man, and Fisk to do an evil bad guy chuckle. Springtrap explains he's from the CIA, and the Attorney General gets a call from Elaine from Seinfeld, causing him to tell Fisk oversight won't be an issue, and we support you fully. So I don't exactly know if the show takes place before or after Thunderbolts, but either way, Elaine's goal was to create a private vigilante. Initially, it was Sentry. It obviously eventually became the Thunderbolts or the New Avengers or whatever. Why does she support Fisk mandatory life sentence and executing vigilantes in the streets? Why is she pro-vigilante arrest? That makes no sense at all, considering her goal is to set up a vigilante in New York. Or an extrajudicial actor. Like, just because they don't wear a mask doesn't mean they're not vigilantes. Karen goes to the store to retrieve a folder, and then they do this slow motion shot for some reason, featuring another jump cut, and that's the entire scene again. Heather Glenn, who I'm sure you remember from season 1 because of all those great moments she had, is doing a psych evaluation of Jack Duquesne, or the swordsman, who I'm sure you remember from Hawkeye because he's such a memorable character. The whole scene, A, sucks because I don't give a crap about either of these characters, and B, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to gather from the scene at all. So, as a reminder, Heather went from having literally no character traits to being super annoying and not making any sense. She shot Muse, killing him, then said Muse was violent because of Daredevil, so she was violent because of Muse, and violence flows through people, or whatever. The Vigilante Task Force then co-opted her story, saying they shot Muse. Then she and Matt argued because Matt said Fisk was going to co-opt her story, and she said he was being paranoid. And no, I did not say those scenes out of order. Her story was co-opted by Fisk's task force. Then she argued with Matt over whether Fisk's task force was going to try to co-opt her story. That was the order the scenes happened. Then they broke up because of those things, and then Matt called... and then Matt, after waking up at a hospital, called her Karen for some reason, even though it makes no sense because he hasn't seen Karen in like a year. And then they broke up, and now I guess she's Team Hitler for some reason. Anyway, this scene doesn't make any sense because of Jack Duquesne is having a psych evaluation, and he's giving answers that make sense under legal reasoning. She says he's the swordsman, and he denies because of that whole pesky Fifth Amendment thingy. Then says he'll do a psych evaluation if it's agreed to by the prosecution and defense, because, again, that's the legal thing to do. As this is happening, Heather is writing down character traits such as hostile, delusional, and hates authority. Now, at first, I was under the impression that she was exaggerating or lying because now she's Team Hitler and she's trying to subvert these answers so that he looks worse in court because he hasn't done anything to display the traits she's writing down, actually. But in a later scene, we'll see that apparently these were her professional opinions on the interaction, and that maybe isn't what I'm supposed to glean from that, but we'll get to the second scene later because it's towards the end of the episode. To me, it very much gives off the impression that this scene, she actually thinks this, and then she's lying later. Heather then sees Muse. Well, this show's pathetic excuse for the much cooler comic book character known as Muse. And then she goes all crazy, and she has some weird smirk and starts talking all crazy, essentially saying the whole law thing, that's all bogus, and they're just going to go ahead and torture him, so he should probably just do the psych evaluation. Now, obviously, when you have a character who has done nothing but ensure his constitutional rights to a fair trial and the whole Miranda rights and legal stuff stays maintained, and has avoided saying anything to incriminate himself or that would help the prosecution without speaking to his lawyers, you'd assume this lady going crazy is probably insane, and it's best to not move forward until speaking with your legal representative. So that's, of course, exactly what he does. Next scene. Oh, hold on. I'm double checking my note. Actually, he instead begins answering her questions, meaning the implication I'm supposed to get from this scene is that Heather, somehow going completely insane and talking like a crazy person, managed to manipulate this guy into doing this test. This guy who seems to have at least passable knowledge of the law decides to incriminate himself without speaking with his lawyers because a lady went crazy. All right, sticking with scenes featuring so-called characters that nobody gives a single crap about, it's time for Kirsten McDuffie to talk with Cherry. We really got the hard-hitting characters in this scene. Kirsten says she needs Cherry to investigate something, and they can't afford another investigator. Cherry points out they can't afford to pay him, so I'm supposed to believe this firm is struggling. They are in a giant riverfront office with like 15 other worthless employees. Matt and Foggy had a crappy rundown office that they could only afford because it was destroyed in the events of Avengers, and the only employee they had was Karen, and they couldn't even really pay her. Maybe downsize your gigantic office and fire some people if you're that broke, Kirsten. Kirsten asked Cherry if he heard from Matt. Cherry said he hasn't, but Matt will be fine. Kirsten gets angry at him, calling Matt her partner and friend. You know, Kirsten and Matt had all those awesome friendship growing scenes. Remember? Avocados at Law, Kirsten and Matt. Oh, wait, sorry, that wasn't her. Yeah, that's right. They had like 8 scenes together in the first season. I know they are technically friends because the show says so. All I'm saying is they've done nothing to set up that they are actually friends. Then, continuing with worthless characters interacting, D.A. Hochberg shows up and Cherry leaves. Time for your favorite characters, D.A. Hochberg and Kirsten McDuffie, to interact. Oh boy, we are so far from a scene like the one where Foggy confronts D.A. Hightower, it's unreal. Whereas that scene featured Foggy going after his friend for letting Fisk off easy, challenging whether he cares about doing his job or focusing on re-election. This scene features great lines such as, "I have 4 brothers, I don't get embarrassed." Hochberg wants McDuffie to plead out of the swordsman case, which to me begs the question, Jack Duquesne is being held in the Red Hook port, and he has no idea where he's at, and he hasn't spoken to anyone. How, A, are they representing him without ever having met him in person? B, he's like a billionaire and like super rich, so can he afford a better legal team? Not that Matt, I'm not going to give Kirsten anything. She's done nothing. Matt is supposed to be a really good lawyer. He's still like a small firm. I would think the super rich guy would have a really expensive firm. And C, if the NYPD has no legal jurisdiction on Red Hook, supposedly the U.S. doesn't, period. But even if the U.S. does, why is he being tried in a New York City court? That doesn't make sense. Kirsten says her evidence is rock solid, and Hochberg replies saying, "You think the evidence matters?" Which caused her to be all kind of like offended that he's now on Team Hitler. Even though he's technically right that evidence really does not matter in a case, and it's about the arguments a lawyer can make, you know, like O.J. Simpson.
In his book, O.J. Simpson says that he would have taken a bullet or stood in front of a train for Nicole. Man, I'm going to tell you, that is some bad luck when the one guy who would have died for you kills you.
Also, Duquesne is seemingly under trial for being a vigilante, which he is. So how does she possibly have rock-solid evidence he's not a vigilante since he literally is a vigilante? Hochberg tells her to come back and work for her at his office in the DA, and Kirsten turns him down and then drops one of the corniest lines ever.
And I really prefer Counselor McDuffie.
I'll see you in court, Counselor McDuffie.
That is one big pile of shit.
Thankfully, that scene's over, so now we should be done with those worthless characters. Anyway, who's in the next scene? Oh, man, come on! Anyway, Cherry and Matt, they meet, and Cherry says he had a feeling Matt was behind Northern Star, which, that's pretty impressive instincts there, Cherry, given that the official story is that Daredevil was behind it. You really nailed that one, man. Great investigating. Matt tells Cherry the boat had military ordnance, prompting Cherry to ask who Fisk is in bed with. Again, this dude has a private military force of bad guy cops. Why would he need to be in bed with anybody? I know he is because the show told me he is, but why would these characters have any reason to believe that? I guess you could say the scale of it, but again, wouldn't Fisk then just be like selling those off to random criminals? I mean, Turk was actively selling weapons out of his car. Matt didn't stumble on Turk and be like, this guy's clearly working with someone else. Again, I know it's a scale thing probably, but I don't know. I'm just having a hard time believing that the most logical reasoning that these characters would believe Fisk is working with someone is because they're running a whole bunch of high-grade weapons. Matt says this is their best chance to expose him, so I don't really need to bring up the whole executing people on TV thing again, but, you know, it happened. Cherry tells Matt he's retired, and Matt guilt trips him into saying people died on the boat. Again, this is literally I'm 2 weeks from retirement, man, except in this case, he's already retired. You know, Matt guilt trips him about the people on the boat, and yeah, you didn't even try to save him, Matt Murdock, Mr. Hero, something your much better cousin over on Netflix would have tried to do at least, even if he failed, and then he would have felt really guilty that all those guys died. Matt says he can't reach out to Kirsten because that would put her at risk. Fisk knows Matt is Daredevil. She's already at risk. That reason makes no sense. Be honest, Matt. It's because she's a useless, worthless character just like Cherry and you don't want to talk to her, which I respect. Matt tells Cherry the captain and first mate left the boat, meaning they're co-conspirators in the gun running, which is obvious. Hey, Cherry, those guys on the gun running boat, they're working together running guns. I think Mr. Excellent Investigator Cherry could have pieced that one together, Matt. Now, the next scene is one of the most hilarious scenes I've ever seen. The Hitler cops, led by Officer Evil Bad Guy, walk into this restaurant. They ask if the owner has seen the captain or first mate. She calls him a fascist, and then Officer Evil Bad Guy smokes her in the face, which causes the captain to waddle away in the worst and slowest running form ever. Officer Evil Bad Guy then chases after him, but because the first guy's so slow, he has to waddle after him, and it's like a small-scale version of the Kenobi chase scene. Then they corner the guy in the alley and they rough him up because they're evil. So next we get some counter-propaganda where a guy playing a character of Fisk says BB had no integrity and Fisk is evil. Then shows the security camera scene of Daredevil sinking the boat. Now it's worth noting that, by all impressions of the show, this footage has not been released to the public. So this has to be someone from the mayor's office making this video, or more likely, it's probably BB herself with someone doing a voice acting or a voice filter or whatever. Alright, anyway, back to characters you don't care about interacting. BB goes to Daniel Blake's party at his apartment. That's TikTok, man, for those of you that forgot. And the two act like they're old friends. They are not friends. BB pretended to be his friend to get information out of him, then published that information, nearly getting him killed, or at least fired. TikTok Man is supposed to be like the mind that's in line with the youth and smart, so Fisk, and that's why Fisk likes him so much. So why is he such an idiot? This scene is literally completely useless other than that. They talk about nothing that you don't already know, and their friendship makes no sense, and this scene is stupid. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. I'm skipping this scene. And this next scene is the second funniest scene in the episode. Matt walks into a Greek restaurant and tells the owner he's a lawyer, and she's kind of weirded out. Matt points out he knows she sneaks people out of New York, and again, she's like, who's this random lawyer? She definitely does not yet know who he is, or at least it's written and shot and acted in a way that you can't tell if she knows who it is or not. Then Matt reaches out and grabs his walking cane, She sees it and she's like, Murdoch, the famous Hell's Kitchen lawyer. It's literally Dr. Doofenshmirtz and Perry the Platypus. She essentially tells Matt the captain is missing and they need to try to find the first mate, and that's the whole scene. Next, we see as Officer Evil tortures the captain, Buck walks in and interrupts him, saying he's bad at getting information, and you think this is going to be some classic good cop, bad cop. Then Buck shoots him in the head. I'd argue with Buck that that's probably a less effective method of gathering information than torture. Because, he's dead now. But I guess he's the expert, so what would I know? This scene is also why I say that security footage of Daredevil probably hasn't been shown to anyone else, because Officer Evil says the captain confirmed Daredevil was on the boat, which that's kind of the official story anyway. But that would imply to me that he hasn't seen the video that proves Daredevil is on the boat. Other than that, this scene's useless. Moving on. Springtrap meets with Kingpin and Vanessa, with Vanessa, of course, sitting at the head of the table. Springtrap reveals that, whoa, the CIA is using the Freeport to smuggle weapons. So he asks if Fisk, if he's all right sending some men to retrieve the weapons and then killing them after, because they can't know about it. Fisk doesn't want to do that because loyal men are hard to come by. Very principled stance from the guy who beat a loyal man to death in his car and also decapitated a mob boss who was loyal to him. This scene mostly serves to show us who's really behind the gun running, and that, whoa, this guy, he's not scared of Fisk, and he's all joking around and happy-go-lucky because he's not scared of Fisk. BB meets with Karen to reveal, whoa, BB's actually working against Fisk. Shocking, I know. Karen warns her that the manipulators are often the easiest to manipulate. Karen tells BB Ben Urich died to save her, and she carries a lot of guilt about that. She then says she thinks the best way to honor their dead friends, or mentors, or relatives, or whatever, is to not join them. Coming from the woman who went and stared Fisk down and told him she killed his only friend in hopes he would attack her so he'd go back to prison, and talking about Ben Urich, who, yes, sacrificed himself, but wanted the truth to get out and justice to be served. I doubt Ben would want BB and Karen to die, but I'm pretty sure he'd want them to try and hold those in power accountable and tell the truth. Now, we're almost done, but we have another Heather scene first, which is awesome. Heather listens back to the recording of her interview with Jack Duquesne, when she gets a call from Hochberg saying he needs her to change the result of Jack Duquesne's test so he can be listed as a sociopath. Again, that's the swordsman, if you already forgot. She gets all wide-eyed about this because she wouldn't want to compromise her integrity or whatever bullcrap they want me to think. But after she sees Muse again, she changes one of his answers because this is actually supposed to be a projection or whatever. Isn't that so clever? Now, I think this scene's stupid because I was already under the impression that she was lying on those answers, but then she acts like this is some big deal. Like she really hesitates to change his answer. And so now I'm confused as to when you were being an idiot before writing all those other things down that were clearly exaggeration and lies, you were being honest and professional there. But I'm going to be completely honest. I don't care about this character at all. And I just hope we can fast forward to the ending of Heather Glenn in the comics, so I don't ever have to sit here and deal with this annoying, useless and worthless character ever again. Karen then watches Matt train and says she'll never be able to understand how he can do that. She's known for 10 years he has literal superhuman reflexes, but sure. Matt references he was trained by Stick, who I never thought I'd say, but I'm so glad is dead, because that means this show can't bring him back and ruin him. Matt and Karen train together, and Matt tells her about the restaurant owner smuggling people out of New York, and Karen excitedly says, good, we need more people making trouble for Fisk. 2 scenes ago, Karen was talking about how guilty she felt about an innocent person dying for standing up to Fisk. Karen then asked Matt if he misses being Matt Murdock. I sure miss Matt Murdock. I don't know what or who this character is supposed to be, but I miss Matt Murdock. Then she goes on saying Nelson, Murdock, and Paige. Matt says he does his best to move forward. Karen says she misses it. Well, so do I. But you, the writers of Daredevil Born Again, chose to move on. You killed Foggy and assassinated everyone's characters, so screw you. Back at the restaurant, a waiter tells the owner there's a man outside. Now, with the business being to sneak people out of New York, it's likely best that she knows as little information about him as possible. That way, if anybody ever comes up to question her about these people she smuggled out, she doesn't know anything about the guy or his name or the nature of his business. So what this guy obviously does is tell the owner his full government name and what criminal act he partook in. Probably just didn't have enough time to slip in his mother's maiden name and credit card information. Also, at the same time, why is this guy struggling to get out of New York City? It's not like it's that hard to leave. There are 21 bridges, 4 tunnels, and a lot of ferries. Nobody outside the island knows you exist or knows you're going to be a problem. just leave. New York City is currently the only place people are trying to hunt you down to kill you. So go find someone else who can smuggle you out of the country if that's what you're struggling with, not in New York City. Inside Cherry's apartment, he hears the door being knocked on and the task force tells him to open his door. He quickly texts Matt before letting the men beat him up. Then they're about to shoot him and Daredevil saves the day. But as they go to leave, more men come running up the stairs and Cherry begins to have a heart attack. It's at this point, while watching, that I begin to cheer and hoping Cherry's heart exploded. Daredevil begins to beat the crap out of all the task force members, being sure to yell with every punch because, of course, Daredevil yells. Remember he yells. That's his character thing. He yells. He then stops because he hears worthless Cherry's heart is about to explode, and he remembers when Foggy died. For whatever reason, this caused him to stop fighting. Then he gets punched, kicked, and hit in the face with some clubs, causing him to go down. Thankfully, this isn't a character who has a history of being able to take a hell of a beating and keep moving forward. The task force guys remove his mask and find out, whoa, it's Matt Murdock, who's been Daredevil this whole time. Then, right when they're about to shoot Matt in the head, they all get shot in the face by Bullseye, and Bullseye lands a knife by Matt's face with "You're welcome" inscribed on it. And wow, Bullseye saved him. Impeccable timing on that. And finally, the episode is over. In case it wasn't clear, I don't like this episode. This video is really long, and I don't want to take up a bunch of time with a long-winded conclusion here, and I think I've pretty much covered everything I need to say on it. This is not good. In fact, it's actually quite bad. If you sat here through the full video, I hope you join me next week for episodes 2 and 3, because we have a double feature next week. And as always, thanks for watching.
No, you can't! I won't do it! You can't make me!